What's good, Internet, and welcome to another day of our holiday extravaganza here at Waypoint Radio. I'm your host, Austin Walker. I'm joined again by Rob Zachney.
Good morning.
Gita Jackson.
Hello.
Patrick Klepek.
Hello.
And Ricardo Contreras on the ones and twos.
Would you say this is a hoopla? Is it a holiday hoopla?
A holiday hoopla.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just like the alliteration.
What is a
you know?
hoopla?
A hoopla.
How would you define
A hootenanny.
Like a hootenanny, an extravaganza,
A jamboree.
I don't know. Wow. Yeah.
I'm not sure I go that far.
How many of these does Kato have on tap? That's the
Keep
real
going.
question.
Kato, keep
How many
naming.
that was
different
gathering
I was
challenge.
reaching with
Oh,
this fucking
just a
damn
hoot
clock.
nanny.
I saw a cop.
You can tell that this is the second one we've recorded because
Tidu.
we all have energy. We're
already
a
a
little
little punchy. Yeah.
We're a little punchy, but we're not tired yet, which is important.
Yes.
Because we will be. We will be. Today.
Okay, that's a threat.
Today, we are going to do a little retrospective looking at all the games released this year. That's not true. We can't look at all the games that released this year because about 600 porn games released on Steam this month, probably, and we're not going to go through all of them.
All of them.
And we're wow, that's what we're focusing in on. Let's see here. Let's go front page of Steam, and I don't know. Let's scroll
Match
down.
Boob 5, The Revenge of...
Revenge of the boob.
Yeah. That's it. That's what we're talking about here today. Happy
Revenge
holidays,
of the Titties
everybody.
is the name of my memoir. Anyway.
Damn.
We should see if Sam Cole will write about these games for us. She really
It's
nailed
actually-
the porn game. I played the games that promise they will make you come demographic, and so
Right.
I feel like another
I loved
investigation.
that article.
Yeah.
Sam, come on the pod.
Yeah. Naughty Memories, Seek Girl 7. They're all here right on the front page if you go to new releases. So that's where we are. No, we're going to start with January and look at the games.
Oh, wait.
What's
There's a caveat here in
Yes.
which
Yes.
we're not going... So there's a lot of caveats here.
Great.
I'll start with the first one, which is that we individually, we have sketched out what we think is our game of the year.
Yeah.
And so we won't talk about that game here. So like there won't be a 2-hour discussion of insert X game. That'll just get pushed to a separate podcast. But there's a chance, because we haven't finalized our list, that maybe that changes and is not somebody's game of the year, and you get a game of the year discussion out of it. That's entirely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
So when we get to like a Hades and an Umurangi and we're like, oh, we're not going to talk about that here, or it's like other people talking about it and not the people you would want to talk about it, that is your explanation.
Hold on to your seats. That conversation will probably happen.
Right. Well, wait. I thought the thing was that the conversation was going to happen. We just couldn't talk. The person in question couldn't talk about
They
it.
could ask questions, right?
They
Like
could
that
ask
was where
questions.
where we ended up.
Yeah.
Is the person who has picked that as their goatee can ask questions about it, but not, and they can't be like questions, like statements in the form of a question. It has to be an actual question.
Right. We're
Yeah,
also
this is like a
Go ahead.
workshop or crit, except none of us have done anything creative.
That's really good. Yeah, that's exactly right. The other thing is we're
Yeah.
using the Wikipedia list of games released this year, which is not complete.
No.
Obviously.
This probably does not have, like, if folks here want to shout out like an Itch.io game, like unless it was of a certain prominence in like pop culture, it like probably
Right.
isn't on this list.
There is stuff here that is like small stuff that I really like. So I'm happy using this list because, like, you know, if found,
It gives
is
us a
on it from
baseline.
October.
But if-
Yeah.
You know,
but if you
It
know-
does catch a lot of the bigger indies, but it doesn't catch any of
Yes.
the smaller ones.
That's exactly right. It catches Steam Big Indie, not itch.io. I downloaded this on a whim and really liked it, indie, which is a problem. But we have very limited time to record today, so we need to have this. Also, I should say that today is the day we are recording this. We're getting as much done as we can. So if we do seem tired by the end of this, that is why. Unfortunately, we do not have multiple days in the schedule to do these, so we're just doing it. With that said, we should start going. And also, I think the way we're going to do this is we have this list in front of us. We're going to scroll until we see something that we want to call out and say. Right? We're not going to. I'm not going to ask anyone about AO Tennis 2 because that is adult only Tennis 2. It's a porn tennis. No, it's not a porn tennis.
I wish.
But,
how'd that come out on Switch? Nintendo's really changed their policies.
Yeah. Really good backhands in that game.
Okay.
No,
all
we're
right.
Wow.
Listen, what
Play the
consenting
Reaper
tennis
noise.
players do is all right. We can start going down this list right now. The first thing here that I think, God, what's the first thing that who has a thing in January that they played from this list? KRZ is my first thing.
Sharp FE Encore.
Did you play it?
I played it, didn't finish it. It's really
Okay.
fucking good, though. I'm so glad it came out on Switch because I missed it when it was on the Wii U. And I felt... I haven't finished it. I got to the first music video for that first character.
Yeah.
Your best friend.
Yeah.
And the only thing that bothered me was that I have to play as a man.
Fair.
I think.
Fair.
You know, that's the only
If you
thing
play
that
as
bothers me. I
any
want
of
to play
the
as
many
girl.
cool women in that game, it would be sick. In fact, it would have been cool if they had done the thing that they did for Persona 3 Portable, where they just added a woman main character for that forever ago, and that would have been nice.
For that one, they did add new romances, and I don't even need them to do that. Give me the same romances. Don't even change the pronouns. I just let me imagine I'm not a shitty, nameless teenage boy that doesn't have any thoughts or opinions. Just I want to be a girl, a no thoughts had empty girl.
Yeah. None of us played Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, unfortunately. I played it at an event at E3, and Kakarot, and I didn't like it very much, and so I never.
I remember that booth.
Yeah,
It's a big booth. Capsule Core.
It was a big booth.
It was cool.
yeah, that was a cool booth. Anything else in January? Kentucky Route Zero is the next one for me here. Really love that game.
Great ending too. We did a different holiday hot take that was games with bad endings that disappointed you, and Kentucky Route Zero is not that. And I guess I was surprised by the degree to which I liked the ending. There was just a lot of build. There were a lot of ways it could have gone not wrong, but just sort of fallen flat. And I think it was the opposite of that.
Totally. Yeah, I think that KRZ is a game that it really puts a cap on this decade. I think it says a lot about the ways in which American capitalism grinds folks down, destroys places, separates communities, and marginalizes us. And I think that is, for me, it ended up hitting harder than something like Disco Elysium, a game I really like because of its focus on kind of the small ways in which people find or create spaces for themselves, which in a year like this, looking back on it, was very important.
In some ways, I wish KRZ had the culmination, or they had dropped a little bit later because I think in this year, especially in this moment, I think I bet if you and I were to replay that now, it would even land differently now than it did in January.
People should go reread my review of it, because that's a review literally about the ways in which people in power, how that's a game about the ways in which people in power either intentionally or unintentionally fail communities who are in crisis. There's lots of talk about not just debt, but the ways in which groups of people are left to kind of hang. And a lot of that stuff hits even harder post-COVID, living under an administration that it was able to kind of wield death by system and allow hundreds and thousands of people to die. KRZ is not about a plague, but is very much about death that could have been avoided, and the ways in which the people are brought into a system that hurts them. It's good. It's a really good game. I like it.
Good game.
We should keep on moving. Really quick, I played Coffee Talk. I thought it was really cute, but the writing just kind of missed for me. And that's a game that's all about writing. It just wasn't there for me.
Yeah, I tried. Hanging out in a coffee shop like that seemed like it would be my thing, but something about it just seemed I don't know. It wasn't doing what I wanted to do with the setting. It was, and also I think coming to it so quickly on the heels of Eliza, which I think was really sharp and trenchant about this moment in the Pacific Northwest, and people sort of evaluating their relationship to industry and the economy. I think Coffee Talk seemed like just a less interesting version of that for me, and a little bit more to make up for the things I found less engaging about its writing. It was an awful lot of, boy, we do love Shadowrun in this setting, and I was like, yeah, cool, but I'd just go play Shadowrun or Eliza.
Right.
General rule of thumb for works of fiction, it's a bad idea to remind me of better works of fiction that I could be reading, watching, or playing.
Odd.
Not excited about the new Spider-Man. I'm the only one in the world. But it's just like, I'm going to watch that movie and be like, I should just watch Spider-Man 2.
It's a good movie.
It's a fucking great movie. You can just watch it right now.
It's available. Rob, before we move on, did you want to hit... Oh, go ahead, Kato.
Oh no, I was thinking the same thing, but it would be Spider-Verse. Go watch Into the Spider-Verse again because that's what they're doing.
That movie also great. Exactly. Why would you just not watch that movie?
Sure.
Do you want to talk about Warcraft 3 real quick?
Yeah. Do you
I didn't play that, but I was like, I feel like that what a flashpoint in time for Blizzard as a studio.
Yeah. I mean, it is a thing that probably we would be better off if it didn't exist. I didn't have the major issues with it that a lot of people did. I came to it late. But in terms of, it's not enough of an improvement to really, like, you're not playing it and being like, damn, like, if you compare it to the Command & Conquer remasters that came out later this year, those are examples of doing it right. Where, and I think Microsoft did this to an extent, but I think Command & Conquer kind of got the gold standard, where you basically preserve everything about the aesthetic and look of the game. You just make it so that it looks much higher res, much more modern. But it still looks authentic to what the game was. Warcraft 3 Reforged feels and looks like a different game, but I think the bigger issue is that it is not a good or very functional multiplayer game in a lot of ways. And from what I've sort of seen in the conversation in that community, basically what they have managed to do with Reforged is they killed what was still a pretty robust Warcraft 3 community to ram through kind of a piece of shit that they clearly scaled back their ambitions and budget for part ways through. And so it ends up neither satisfying as like a remastering, but it also succeeds primarily in busting up a community that's really been a bright spot for Blizzard for a number of years. So it's just one of those things. This thing probably we'd all be better off if it hadn't happened.
Well, I think it like helps speak to like how strange Blizzard is as a studio at the moment. Like with their original plans for that remaster were like to retcon the story to tie it into World of Warcraft, and then people were like, "I don't want you to do that," and they're like, "Okay, well, I guess we won't."
Well, we won't because also we're cutting the resources we're devoting to this, so we're not going to worry so much about creating new stuff to make it all match.
Well, so you ended up with they had a BlizzCon where they showed like a bunch of like new cutscenes because they're like, "Oh, we're doing this new story stuff. We're going to tie it into our broader Warcraft universe, and that's going to be kind of our justification for doing a lot of this extra work." And then they kept the original new cutscene, but like got rid of all the other. I mean, it's just a real like a lack of understanding of like what the community was. Where it's like, oh, if the community was going to have this reaction, why did they propose something that was going to be so soundly rejected? Or if the theory was, look, we want to do something different, the original one will still exist, like we're not going to touch that, then stick with your like. It's just like a really. It paints, Blizzard's a strange company right now, but this like project in particular spoke to their inability to like look at their past history with any sort of like clear understanding of how people are engaging with it right now.
Well, I also think it did feel a little bit for me like it was, this feels like a thing that was greenlit by a different Blizzard culture in some ways.
Yeah.
And like, oh, new Blizzard came in the middle of this and were like, in so many words, fuck them kids.
It's like when a new movie studio exec comes in, inherits a bunch of old projects, and is like, "Well, I don't want to work on this movie." Like, but it's too far in production. It's like, well, what if we just like cut it off at the knees and have fun?
Okay, let's keep on moving. We are now into February. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus was a game I thought I would stick with, and then the thing that happened that like made me stick with it less than even like Dragon Ball Fighter Z Fighters was that COVID happened and there were no tournaments. And then also the FGC was riddled with Me Too allegations as many harms came to light, abuses and other sorts of misconduct. As those stories spread, and as COVID happened, events were canceled, and online events just didn't have the same pool. And so I think a big part of why I ended up bouncing off of that game was like, I wanted to watch people play that game to keep me hyped on playing that game. And so within a month and a half, right around March, as COVID starts to hit, I start to fall off that game. So that was my experience. It's a really, really pretty game. I think some of the stuff there for new players is really cool. I wish that the like kind of story mode had been better, but I feel like that about every fighting game that isn't the various Tekken or Soul Calibur games on the PS1. So that is what it is. Kato, I know you played some of this too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it had like a really great balance of just like simple like special inputs, where I feel like a lot of times I personally get hung up on like doing Dragon Punch inputs, like, and I'm really bad at them. It just felt like it was kind of simplified, but not a simple game. It was simplified from like the kind of like most, like, it's not your Guilty Gear, right? It's still an anime fighter, but it allowed for, I feel like, a lower floor for like pulling off combos, where like I couldn't pull off a combo in Guilty Gear, but I can in Grand Blue, and that felt good,
Totally. What it did do is get me into Grand Blue Fantasy, the mobile game. And I played a lot of that for like 2 months and enjoyed my time with it.
I remember that.
And it was nice. I like that world a lot. The stories in that game are really sick. The character design in that game rules. So yeah.
It's been weird looking at the list and going like, so one, in 2019, there were just a shitload of games that came out in January and February. Yes. And there just wasn't as much this year. But at the same time, I was thinking to myself, well, what was I doing? I'm like looking at this list and I was like, I know that I play games like almost every night. Like, what was I doing? So I keep a list of the games I've played. And I was like, I played like these are the months I played Disco Elysium and like Outer Wilds, like games that will end up in my top 10 list because I didn't get them the year before, and were tremendous experiences that I finally got around to in the period of January and February when there just wasn't as much for me to play.
Totally. Outer Wilds, so fucking good. We already talked about Disco. So, did anyone play Knights and Bikes? Actually, did that come out on PC the year before?
I think so.
Did anyone here play that? I know that had some sort of an audience.
I heard it was cute.
Yeah.
And that was like the extent of it for me.
Yeah. The Daemon X Machina re-release on Windows was nice. It had frame rate, but I didn't replay the whole thing, so I don't have much to say about it. Darksiders Genesis?
I'll just say quickly, Florence is a great little game. It's a re-release that they're talking about for PC and Nintendo Switch. Great game for Switch.
I love
Best
that
on
story.
mobile, I think.
Yeah, Florence, I love it on mobile. It feels really good on mobile for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, also another
Darksiders Genesis. Did anyone?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say really quick shout out that happened early February was White Ocean Big Jacket. That was February.
Oh, was that? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Good catch.
Yeah. Really enjoyed that.
Do you want to explain what that is and tell people about it?
It's a narrative-based game where you're kind of walking around, going on a vacation as these two teens, preteens, young teens, and two like kind of young adults, and it has a really interesting kind of framing, I think is the way I put it, where like it has really great sense of pacing and like it's just really good dialogue and a really like touching story of like people kind of going how sometimes drama hits when you're on a trip because you feel freed from the other like distractions of it's that feeling of just like we're out here, we get to think more, and now we're thinking a little too hard about certain issues in our lives. And I really
well, and also the stakes are both grand but also minor, right? Like it's not like if you were to sit and because I loved this game too, and this story in particular, where if you were to like recount like what happened, it's like, well, not a lot, but also like but also everything happened. And it manages to like a lot of the framing is through these two kids. I think they're teenagers, like young teenagers.
Because I remember there's that one shot that's like the old teen, like the mean teens that are a little bit older than them. Right?
Yeah, it's got a really good sense of humor. It like moves at a really fast pace. Like even just like the pacing is just like really fascinating. They added some extra chapters at some point.
Whoa, really?
That I have not had a chance to go back and
interesting.
Mess around with. But I know they sort of like they revisited that game a little bit later in the year. But it's also really short. Like people should really go and you like visual novels.
$8 on itch. I think it's on Switch and stuff now. Also,
it is. Yeah.
So people should check it out for sure. Also, that studio, Turn Follow, has made nothing but fucking bangers in my opinion. So go check out the rest of the stuff that they've made. I think it's all on itch. I really love it. What else? Any other things from early February?
Well, you mentioned Darksiders Genesis.
Oh, right.
I liked that game, but just it was one of those games where I'll get back to it because I like the world of Darksiders and still have a soft spot for that original game. That
sure.
You know what? If there was a question in a different podcast that was like, "What's a franchise you keep playing even though there's diminishing returns?" And Darksiders is one of those. Even though I think Darksiders Genesis is a totally fine and fun like co-op action RPG. It is one that I believe you can play co-op, and if I like lived in a world, if my kid was like a little bit older, that's like the game that I probably would have like really, really liked. But on its own, it was sort of like, if I had more time, I definitely would have played this. But in a world where I have to compartmentalize and like focus, it was just one where I played just enough to go, this is all right. And then it kind of fell off the side.
Fair. Dreams got its. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dreams.
Dreams is out. Dreams came out.
Dreams is great. Dreams is fantastic.
People should go watch Patrick's streams of Dreams, his dream streams. They're really fun.
So Dreams is my boyfriend's favorite game of this year, I think.
Oh.
He loves Dreams, but he also what he loves is the game on Dreams called Ball World Adventure, which I've watched him play for hours. It's just a Super Monkey Ball clone, except it's like the perspective is very weird and has like very, very like PlayStation 1-esque trance music playing all the time. Yeah. And he falls off the edge constantly. So I just hear him from the other room going, "Oh shit."
As trance music plays.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really good.
Fuck.
Oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's right, Ball World Adventure seems dope, though. I don't think I would enjoy it, but if you like that kind of thing,
go check it out.
It's great.
It just has such a Dreams, I never make games or make things in these creation tools, but I so enjoy what the community does with them. And Dreams, it feels like I can't quite explain why it didn't land harder. Like I don't know exactly why it feels like it kind of got ignored. I do hope that Sony releases this on PC at some point. Like this becomes one of those games that gets a chance to exist on a different platform. I think it would really flourish on PC. Yep. But it's like Media Mako made a bunch of really cool fucking tools. And people are doing just incredible. Like just go search on. If you just so when I played Dreams and I did my streams, it was just I picked a word and then we just like explored what that word like brought us to and followed that rabbit hole. And you can do that even not playing Dreams. Like you can do that on YouTube. If you just search for Dreams and a word, you will find all sorts of like just really people are making just art like scenes. I like saw just recently I retweeted like a recreation of like the T-Rex scene in Jurassic Park, and it's like it's almost like an animated GIF. Like it's frozen in time, but there are atmospheric effects and there's like lighting. And it's just gorgeous and weird, and it just exists in this PS4 box. Like it's like it's so hard for anyone else to see it, and maybe that's part of the problem. Is that it's a bunch of like really fascinating art that is limited to this console box, and there aren't as many ways for it to be shared with the outside world, and maybe that's something they'll be able to work on. I don't know how much more work Dreams is going to get from Media Molecule, or if Sony's going to say, hey, maybe don't spend an entire generation on a creation set and release it right as we're finishing that generation. I'm hopeful that Dreams will just get a re-release on PS5 and PC, and like it'll get the proper push and attention that it deserves. And really, it's for the community. I mean, the tools are great. Like Media Molecule did a bang up job on that, but there's just so much neat stuff happening in that community that it's a bummer that it's not more widely seen and understood.
Fair.
The accessibility is definitely an issue with Dreams, because if I read about a game on Dreams on the internet, I then have to go to a different room to play the game. And
like imagine if it had imagine if it had like a Stadia-like functionality where like someone could make something on PlayStation, but then I could send you a link and you could play it. And they do have something similar to that, where like anything that's in there is part of an online database. There's a website where there are screenshots and video. Like you can see what people are doing, but I don't know. Maybe this just comes back to it didn't hit in the culture in the way that I was hoping. And so even though they have some of these tools available, for whatever reason, it's just not quite getting there. But if you ever had any sort of curiosity, like, just go to their online website where you can poke around at what creators are up to. There's just a lot of even not necessarily playable stuff. It's just weird art things that people are making in Dreams. It's a neat thing, even if it ends up getting ignored.
Yeah, I want to be more into it than I am.
Yeah, I never got a chance to, because they added VR support, and all I could think about was like what cool things people must be making in VR specifically for Dreams. But in redoing my office for next gen, I unplugged all my VR cables, and I have a deep-seated fear that none of them are ever going to get plugged in. Like I played like Half-Life Alyx, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but it feels like, that might have been like the end of VR being plugged in my office outside of, playing with a Quest in a different part of the house.
The VR era ended at Patrick's house.
It did. Yeah. It can be declared.
The dream dies. Anything else here in February that is an actual new release? Let's see.
I mean, they're listing Hunt Showdown.
That's because it hit PS4.
Oh, yeah.
That's a last year game.
When did it formally clear early access?
Last year.
Yeah.
Can I just say the name of this game?
Sure.
Yeah.
Under Night in Birth X:late (CL-R) end bracket.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to the fighting game community. I didn't play the next game. The next game also has a good name. Vitamin Connection. This is video games to me.
I got an email about this. I remember. Yeah, the Way Forward game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
I'm looking for
I will just note.
No.
I've been getting emails for Romance of the Three Kingdoms 14 for approximately 2.5 years. Apparently it came out this year. And at no point was like a release ever announced to me, nor was code offered. I just kept getting weird updates. Like, here's a video about how a system works. You want to watch 20 minutes on like Dynasty mechanics? And I was like, it looks interesting. Let me know when that game comes out. Apparently it came out.
It did. It came out. It did. I didn't get a chance to play it. I didn't find the time because I'm a fake fan. So, it is what it is.
So the thing that had made me hesitate was the last Nobunaga's Ambition they made. Yes. Fucking ruled. That was a great port, great translation. Like, it all worked. God, that game kicked ass. Go listen to 3 Moves Ahead, where we talked about the Nobunaga's Ambition, because that's a good episode. It is such a weird and cool. It's probably not weird if you've kept current on what Koei strategy games are doing, but like I haven't. So this was me coming back to it after like 20 years away, and I was like, this thing rocks.
It's like I love it because if you play Western strategy games, you have a very good idea of what the possibility space is supposed to be. And then you play a Romance of Three Kingdoms or a Nobunaga's Ambition, and you're like, oh, there are other ways to make these that fundamentally are chasing the same thing, but are doing it in unique, different ways that reflect a different history of development styles, and it rules. In
a way, it looks like Koei's direction was largely moving in the Crusader Kings direction. Yep. Is like what they're like. I mean, what if you were just anybody here?
Yeah, exactly.
You just like literally these games. If you like, there are the major players who are supposed to become the main characters of this era politically and like create the great empires. But these games also like give you the option of like, what if you were one of that dude's like minor nobles and like just were just were not even relevant to the major fights? What would you do then? And it's kind of cool. The thing that had kept me off this Romance of the Three Kingdoms was it seems to be a real patchwork, and I don't know if it got better with 14. Like, which of these games is Koei giving full proper like translation support for? Because if you look at their catalog on Steam, there's a lot of shit that like seems to run well on Steam, with the exception of, do you know Japanese? And the answer is no, I do not.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of games that I think I would love to dig into, but like strategy games is kind of weird. You can't really, in my view, you can't really handle a bad translation that well, because like you need to understand what is happening. And
you need to have an intimate knowledge of economies and what you need to manage. And if you have a slight mistranslation on how one of those economies works, you're just fucked.
Yeah, like there's if you can't know for sure that you got the gist correct, then you're gonna get frustrated. And so anyway, people who've looked at that, let me know. Is the water fine? Should I come on in?
Yeah, I would love to know. So let us know. Keep on moving here.
What happened in March? Anyone remember anything happening in March?
I would say Sayonara Wild Hearts. I was like, wait, well, that was
last year
before.
Yeah.
We got lunch.
Because I get confused because we have these games that are re-released on different platforms. Good game though.
What happened in March?
Murdered by
So,
Night.
Gita, Kato, and I had lunch at
I
Max.
don't know.
That was great.
We did have.
I
lunch
enjoyed
with Max.
that.
God.
And
Jesus Christ.
Remember that? Yeah, we saw each other this year once.
Was that in March or was that in February?
that was in
think it was
February. I just went down there for
We got it
a
in
preview.
right under the deadline. I think after maybe 2 or 3 weeks after you guys came to visit, they locked down the office. So
God, that day was so wild. That was just so fucking.
my Isabel Nendoroid had arrived 2 days prior to that.
And didn't you only just get it like last month?
I got
when
it,
you were in office for the video for the shoots.
Yes, I got it like a month ago.
For the shoots of a thing that I'm guessing probably hasn't been announced yet, but stay tuned.
I don't think.
I guess.
Yep.
March.
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 Murdered
Murdered
by
by
Night.
Numbers.
Finally and Forever came out. Is that it?
What? Rob?
Is that what I'm saying here?
What? I
Black
didn't hear what
Mesa.
you said. Did that actually release?
Is that the formal like?
Yes,
tools
that was
down
the
that
formal.
came out?
Yes.
1.0.
You Black Mesa thoughts, Rob?
No, I don't.
No. You clapped your hands together.
That's because there's a bug.
Oh, I
I'm
see.
trying to
Rob-
get it.
That
Rob,
seems-
Rob just keeps the web.
When I see
just
bugs, I
keeps
try to kill them. Unlike some studios I could name.
Oh my god.
He just took a sip of his
Okay.
coffee.
That's okay. Murder by Numbers was it was good. It was cute.
Yeah, it was fun.
How do you feel about like what if Phoenix Wright had to solve a bunch of Picross puzzles?
Yeah.
You know? Well, it's good.
Yeah.
I didn't
Why can't
finish it.
Nintendo just release another Picross 3D? Like, why can't they just do the thing? Stop releasing these flat Picross games. Like, give me the big shapes that I can rotate around on my Switch. Thank you.
Give your shapes to Patrick.
It's the only one that I play. There's a million Picross. I've tried to play flat, normal Picross. Like, it doesn't do anything for me. Like, I was tainted by the 3D ones, and it's the only ones I ever want to
Patrick
play.
lives in
And
3D.
so I do. Yep.
Um,
They're good. They're good games.
yeah, I know they are. They're good. You're not wrong. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX. Kato, you played some of this.
Yeah, very little. I feel like I bounced off of it pretty good. Oh, that's not true. I played a lot of the first.
Just the longest pause.
I love when a segue just. Hey, here's a little alley-oop pass for Kato.
Here you go, Kato.
Slap it down. It's like you like rejected my alley oop.
I thought it was coming from the other side. I got flipped around. I thought it was on the other side of the court. I was blocking.
If I know anything about
Playing
Kato,
any
he's the
sport of
biggest
any
fan in
kind.
the world of this whatever this game is. Kato, you love this game, right? No, not
Absolutely
really.
not, Skip. Yeah.
I played the first 2 minutes of this game like for like 5 hours or something.
This is the personality quiz. We got
The personality quiz.
I remember this.
Right.
The personality quiz.
God, remember when I did ridiculous shit just to write about it? That was fun. That was I like ended up not bouncing off that game. I feel like basically it's, and I've never played these other games, but it from what I understand, it's kind of taking this Sheer the Wanderer roguelike structure and just putting Pokemon on it. But from what I understand, it's kind of
it's a little
that
simpler than that. Yeah.
Because it's Pokemon and it's meant for a younger audience. So like the kind of core gameplay itself of walking around these dungeons, I felt like just wasn't as interesting as it probably is in other versions of this type of roguelite. So like I kind of ended up bouncing off of it, but mostly I did enjoy taking the personality quiz at the beginning where I picked up what kind of Pokemon you were. It kept saying I was a fucking Mudkip, and I'm not a Mudkip though. It's wrong.
You're not. That's absolutely wrong. I'm offended again.
Thank you.
More March stuff. There was that Ori and the Will of the Wisps release on Xbox. I don't think.
Yeah, great game.
Yeah, I think that port was pretty good. You know.
Well, yeah. So the problem with Will of the Wisps was it was buggy, real buggy when it first came out. I beat that game despite the fact that roughly every 20 minutes it would create a loud noise from my speakers. Known bug. They were just like, yeah, we're not. Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, quite literally, it sounded like the computer. I thought something was wrong. Like I thought I was gonna have like whatever virus like infects Rob's computer like every 2.5 months or so.
Oh, the demon in Rob's computer. Yes.
Yes,
sorry,
I thought
Damon.
he had.
Yeah, thanks.
I thought that had like crossed planes over to my computer because you'd be playing and it's you got this beautiful little character running around and it's really charming music and then like and the game would stutter as it did it.
Sorry, Will of the Wisps is the sequel, right? The original was Blind Forest.
Yes.
So this is the sequel. This is a game
sequel.
To go back to yesterday. I think it was yesterday. This is a game with a bad ending.
Yeah. This game
fucking
real
has
bad.
Just shitty ending. I watched you beat this game and was mad about it.
The short version is like, it's who it rewards and who it deems to be evil and what is evil is questionable.
Yeah, it does some stuff that's like, it just does some bad stuff in terms of like
what if a person like is born into the world like with disadvantages and then is just deemed evil as a result of that and is shunned by society.
The story is just like, and then the story says, but at the end of the day, they were just irredeemable, weren't they?
Yeah. They're just evil and let's just set them up for the next game. Which is too bad because The One of Us is otherwise a really, really beautiful and fantastic playing Metroid style game. I think it gets a lot better in the back half. I remember Austin, you mentioning when you were watching me play and seeing some of the mechanical complexity that came from stringing together a lot of the different movement powers. Like in the last fourth of the game is really spectacular. I agree. I wish that's. I think the first Ori is a better game. And the second one is like more complex without necessarily understanding how all those pieces should fit together.
Sure.
But I still think it's really good. I in many ways wish had I known I would have waited either to have played that game when I had like a 4K TV. Like that game has like 120 hertz mode on the Xbox. I can't imagine what that game must look like in 4K at like 120 hertz. Like I'm not one of those guys, but this game is so like engineered to be beautiful that I have to imagine it would be stunning in both of those. And or they put out that surprise Switch port, which is a great way to play either of these games. Like I replayed all of the original Ori in anticipation back when there was nothing to play for me in like January and February. I was like, well, I guess I'll replay Ori. I remember like I like looked up an old email from Microsoft that was like from 2 years ago. It was like, hey, Ori and whatever is on Switch. And I replied to that email. I was like, so I realized I'm coming to this email 2 years later, but do you happen to have another code? And they're like, we have one left.
That's
you
funny.
can have it, I guess. I was like, okay.
That's funny.
Thanks.
God.
Both the games are both tremendous
Yeah.
on Switch.
Did any of us play Neo 2? This is the one that I feel bad about, but also it's about to come out on PC, so I'm very excited in a couple months, I guess. I think it's like February. It's coming to PC, I think, and that is exciting to me. So, didn't play it. Played some of the first one and liked it, but I've heard incredible things about this one, and I'm very curious to see it. So, I'm sorry that we didn't cover Neo 2 this year. I feel like we missed it. Is this around when did you take leave, paternity leave, Patrick?
Those were in March, right?
Yeah. I don't think Patrick heard me or is ignoring my question.
Patrick.
I heard paternity leave. I just came back from.
Oh, I was not looking at you. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Was that when you were on paternity? Is that why you didn't?
I went on paternity leave. We kept filing stories regularly throughout paternity leave, and it was like
untrue. I had some things that could go up later after I left.
Some of them just appeared.
End of March is when all that happens.
Rob, do you have anything to say about
overachievers?
Do you have anything to say about these two baseball games, RBI Baseball 20 or MLB The Show? Did you get to those this year? Okay, Exit the Gungeon that came out. That was Apple Arcade, and then I guess maybe this is the re-release after the Apple Arcade release from last year, right?
Yeah, I didn't particularly care for Exit the Gungeon at all. It didn't really do anything for me in the 2D. Well, I guess it's that's the kind of side-scrolly format they'd adopted for that. It's,
right.
Yeah.
All right, we're about to get
some reason that game kind of came and went.
Some bigger ones here. Animal Crossing: New Horizons. Gita, you reviewed this.
I can't talk about this. I am only posing questions.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say one thing, which is that I didn't remember that this game was going to be one of those games for me until last night at the Game Awards. Last night for us, obviously not last night for you, the listener, when the Hades London Philharmonic version of the Hades song that I had heard also during this month, just coincidentally picked up Hades and played a lot of Hades when I was depressed that I couldn't see my boyfriend for like a month and a half. The London Philharmonic transitioned from that already a very touching moment in my personal life to the song from the Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I literally just burst into tears.
It's a good song. That game
fucking played in a month. It's so good.
Is really good. I fell off of it in the summer because I always do with those games. I achieved certain goals and then I fell off, and then it's really hard for me to go back to it. Even if you tell me that my villagers won't be mad at me, it's very hard for me to set myself back into that mode again, because I don't have it in me to do the check-in. I have it in me to either be.
Do you think you might have had more of that
not.
If I wonder if this game was it hit at a perfect time for a lot of people at home, but also I wonder, did the game suffer from lack of commute, right? Where you had a daily ritual where you'd be checking in with something like this, where you'd be on the bus. You would be
maybe. The thing is, I did keep with it. I kept with it for months. I did have a daily routine with it, and then that routine fell off as other games hit that I needed to spend time with. And then I stopped. And once I stop, it's hard for me to rev the engine back up. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I have two questions for the people who played this game and enjoyed it. One, the first one, I guess, is what would it take really for you to be able to get back into it and play it again regularly? They've been doing a lot of these updates, and I wonder every time I'm always maybe,
Yeah. 4 years into new game.
Fair enough.
I know myself enough to know I'm just done, and I need to accept that and not lie to myself about it, because I've done this before. This is the cycle with Animal Crossing games for me.
Yeah.
I will never go back to that village. I will not, and it's okay, and I need to accept that and let it be a chapter in my life and not beat myself up for it. But I will not. It stresses me out to think about it, because it means realigning the way I'm living my life to get what I would need out of that game again. And it's I don't want to wake up and play that. The actual truth is I don't want to wake up and play that game every day again. And if I'm not engaging with it in that way, I'm not going to enjoy it as much. I don't enjoy a 20-minute check-in. I enjoy having it up,
right,
working towards things, having goals, etc. And so when I'm in that mode, that's when I'm really enjoying it. So I don't know. I think that there would have to be something that I can't even think of that would get me back into it. But like, it's hard to imagine.
I feel like. Well, I was just gonna say, I feel like it would take more so a lull of other things happening at this point for me to be like, yeah, sure, I'll check back in. Because I feel like a check-in takes just like a little bit too long to fit into a regular schedule nowadays. Like, I still play Genshin Impact like every day for like 20 minutes because I can do my 4 dailies in 20 minutes. And like, that's just enough time that I could do that right before bed because I can do it on my fucking phone too. And like, I could do that with the Switch. I could play Animal Crossing for 20 minutes, but nothing, I would feel like I would get nothing done, right? Like, you need like at least an hour, I feel like, of like a daily check-in for that game to like really feel like you're doing something in it, other than just like, I don't know, like saying hi and like clearing a few weeds. I don't know, right? Like, it just feels like there's a little too much to do for that sort of like tiny, small bite sort of consumption.
My other thing I'm curious about, I think you're all right and all your opinions are valid, is that did this game impose like a necessary daily structure for you in early quarantine when things were just very crazy?
100%. That is the other half of it for me, for sure. Like, it gave me the transitional like object by which I could still have a commute. I could still have a schedule. I could still have things that I was checking in on. It helped structure that entire first couple of months of COVID for me in a way that was really, really helpful. And then I think we hit the summer and things started happening that I didn't need that. And alternatively, I just wanted to spend that time elsewhere, you know?
And there's also a certain point in the game where you finish kind of the main path and then you're just waiting for events to happen. Like, you've hit the top, like you've upgraded your house all the way, and like, yes, you can still continue to come back and talk to your neighbors, but as far as like things to work towards, at a certain point, unless you're specifically like flattening your entire island and rebuilding it like regularly, which is not the type of way I play this game. Like, I let the island kind of live organically, and I'm like not terraforming a whole lot. You reach a point after which you have kind of done everything. And that was kind of where I fell off. Was like, okay, well, I have the biggest house. I have, like I've planted the plants where I want to plant them. I have the grove of fruit or whatever where I can pick them easily. But there's nothing to use the bells towards anymore at the end, and so I don't really need to pick the fruit every single day because I don't need to go sell the fruit every single day. You know.
Right, totally. My house is sick. I love the house that I got to build. I ended up with a really great concept for it. And like, it ended up being like, and that's a classic thing, right? It's like you end up executing on your vision for something like that. I also built a giant robot. Those are my my soft and hard outros for that game. So, you know, that's it is what it is.
I'm proud of myself for not buying. What?
Can we talk about Doom Eternal now?
Yeah.
Give me. I just want to say I'm proud of myself for not buying Animal Crossing. Like, to finally just realize it's not for me, not for you. To not pay the $60 and then play it for 3 hours and go,
Also, Rob, listen, Animal Crossing New Horizons is one of the biggest games of the year. It deserves our time to talk about.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying we should move on from this because it's not real. I'm saying, like, I feel like I'm ready to move on to a different game, and I'm really pissed at Doom Eternal.
Sure. Yep. You know what? Want to talk about Doom 64 first? The lore key of the whole universe is my understanding. Doom 64.
You know what? I would have had I not had a second child. That would have been like I had scheduled a whole interview with the designers to talk about like the lore of Eternal and 64, and finally write my grand opus on the Doom 64 Doom unification theory, and it fell apart because of a baby.
All right, Rob.
But Rob,
let's
please unload.
Dig in.
No, I mean, I don't have, like, for me, this is one of my first big disappointments of the year, which was, like, I was really ready to just dig into more of what Doom, like, 2016 had sort of brought, which was that fun, chaotic energy, really, like, honed down, focused on, just being a great run-and-gun shooter, and instead like every single thing they decided to expand on or double down on for Eternal, I feel was the wrong thing. And I think the thing that really strikes me when I look at Doom Eternal is like, it actually makes 2016 more surprising, because it is clear from playing Doom Eternal that I do not think they fully got why people loved that first game. Doom Eternal is like, oh shit, like you kind of accidentally made an awesome game, and then now you're kind of like, now a lot of people are making a game that they wanted to make, and that turns out to be not very interesting. And so like Doom Eternal is just kind of such a weird experience, because it's not like the reasons people loved Doom 2016 were hidden. It's not like, boy, we don't know what was resonating with people. People were pretty clear what resonated, and Doom Eternal is just like all expanding in the wrong places.
Yeah, I need to go back and play more of it, because I bounced off of it so hard and so quickly that I didn't fully like internalize what I didn't like about it. Like, I agree with all my guess is I will just arrive at the same conclusion that you did, Rob, but like I nonetheless have felt compelled, and I've like sketched in my mind, I was like, oh, whenever they do like the next gen update, which they're going to do in like a month or two for the console versions, like maybe that'll be my chance to like revisit it and like fully close the door on it, because the 2016 game is like an all-timer for me. Like, I didn't just like that game, I loved that game, and was so excited for Doom Eternal, and then to play like 90 minutes of it and go, yep, nope, I don't like anything about what they've done. Like, it looks like Doom, it plays like Doom, but there is just something about the balance of this one where I am running in circles to keep a meter up.
Yes.
So that I can like, and so then I understand, like, I played enough of it to understand, like, when I will just sit and read message board threads that's like people talking about Doom Eternal. I'm like, what do you, because there are people who this really hit hard for, like it really like struck something with them. And you can see in the expansion they made, which is basically, it's the difficulty of the expansion, from what I understand, is as though you finished the base game, which, you know, has ramped you up and you are totally dialed into the mechanics. And it's like, hey, we're just going to continue at that pace. Like, there is no tutorial, there is no on ramp. It is, you have played 20 hours of this, like, continue your skills forward. And so, like, I don't know. Like, I'm just I am puzzled. I guess I'm so frustrated at my own reaction to it that I don't love it, that I continually try to find reasons to explain, is there a door I can open that like allows me to understand it?
What's the key
because
to
I'm
this?
I'm just so mad that I don't have the game that I wanted. And not in the why didn't you make the game for me sense. It's just like, this should have been like my game of the year, like full stop, easy, like we've done it. Welcome, Doom. You are here. It's March. The decision is over. And instead I played 90 minutes and have never felt compelled to go back.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Patrick, do you have time to get into Half-Life Alyx? I know you have to step away for a bit.
Yeah, the Washer guy's not.
He's not here yet. Okay.
Yeah, Half-Life Alyx.
You're the only one of us who has the setup to play it.
Not anymore.
Yes,
he broke it. He shattered.
Right. It's done now.
Rob, I'll
like
just
throwing the
maybe I'll
ring
just,
in
I'll
the
just,
Mountain Doom.
Rob, I will box up this Valve Index, and you have the PC for it at this point. You could maybe, I'd have to unscrew some things from the wall, but maybe I'll send that to you. But Half of Alyx, I truly loved playing through Half-Life Alyx. I think it is, if it ends up being like in some ways a swan song for VR, I think it is a pretty appropriate and beautiful one. It is was just such an interesting like Half-Life is one of those worlds that there aren't that many video game worlds where like I get goosebumps when I like think about like a continuation of the story. And I didn't actually know if Half-Life was that for me until like I like strapped on the headset and I heard like the gong of, you know, like the Valve intro, because I don't play Dota or anything, so like I don't really engage a lot with like Valve as a software developer, a game developer like these days. And like seeing that in VR, hearing that noise again, seeing the Half-Life logo again, like reminded me that like, oh, actually like Half-Life, like that original was like a really defining moment of like me playing video games as a kid, and like what they were capable of doing. And I actually do like really love these characters in this world and have wanted to see what happened at the end of episode 2. And like part of what so took me aback in Alex was that I never got the sense in them promoting that game that they were making a horror game. And Half-Life Alyx is just a horror game. Like it is top to bottom trying to scare the shit out of you constantly. I will, in my darkest dreams, can always think about the specific moment in Half-Life Alyx where, so you have the head crabs, and then there's a variant of the head crab that's kind of like a tarantula head crab. It's got these hairs on it. Yeah. And it's the creepiest variant of an already creepy enemy. And there is a sequence in Half-Life Alyx that even now I don't feel like spoiling, because if people eventually get around to it, I want them to have it sort of preserved. But there's a sequence where you encounter that creature for the first time in a dark room that I had such a visceral reaction to a video game. Now part of that is like a mild, I don't know as far as call it a phobia, but like I don't like spiders, and I don't like tarantulas.
I would say it's a phobia. You've talked about it enough that I'm like that.
Well, right, but like I like engage. I mean, I don't know, like in this, I like engage. Like I don't stray away from like horror media or like pictures of spiders. I guess it's low key and kind of like a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. I like subjecting myself to it because I enjoy the reaction I have to it. Like the adrenaline rush I find to be enjoyable. It's directly tied into why part of the reasons I like horror movies is like I like that rush. And there is a specific sequence with the introduction of this creature that I screamed. I had to like text my wife. I was like, if you heard me screaming, I'm actually okay. Like nothing is wrong. Like I mean everything is wrong, but I'm okay. Like I didn't hurt myself. And had to like take the headset off, had to like breathe for a second. And it was one of the coolest moments I've ever had in a video game. Like it was horrible. It was like deeply traumatizing, but like so memorable and interesting. And like wouldn't have been possible outside of VR. It would have been something different. Like there's a different way you could have had a sequence like that, a different way of like, but it's just so finely tuned for the VR experience. And I'm bummed that for all sorts of reasons, that it's it's best experienced with a high-end $1,000 headset. It can really only be played combined with a high-end multi-$1,000 PC. There are so many obstacles to experiencing this game. Even for me, like my PC is kind of middling at this point. When I got to like the climactic sequence of the game, my CPU just like couldn't hack it anymore, and it was just like running at like 15 frames a second. And I was like, oh, this is supposed to be like a really impactful moment. And like, I'm just like trying to trudge to the end of it. But it's, I truly found it spectacular. And the way it connects to the Half-Life mythology was, I thought like really satisfying. And so I doubt like Half-Life 3 or whatever they get around to next will be a VR game. I really doubt that. I really sincerely doubt they will do this in VR. And if this is sort of it, I think it's a good way for VR conceptually to go out, even if it remains around as a niche.
The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3. I know we're all huge fans of the Legend of Heroes series.
People love the shit out of that series, though.
If I could, this is the whole, all I'm saying, all the thing I was just saying is to build up to me saying, truly, if I could take a year off to play a single series because of based on like what people say about it would probably be the whole of the Legend of Heroes franchise.
The but even just trails, even just fucking
yes. If I could step into the hyperbolic time chamber, I would want to play the Trails series.
In this case, is Legend of Heroes is its own franchise, and then Trails of Cold Steel is a series within that franchise, and this is the third.
It goes of the
Trails of Cold
that.
Steel. Okay,
that it goes even one more step up from that,
please,
because it starts at. There's the Dragon Slayer series, which is a bunch of, I want to say, NES games.
Okay.
That it was Dragon Slayer, The Legend of Heroes. Then there's the Gogharv trilogy, and that's the Legend of Heroes 2, Prophecy of the Moonlight Witch. There's a bunch of Legend of Heroes games there. Then there's the Trails sub-series, and that is Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero, Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure, and then Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. And that just finished. And that Cold Steel has 4 games in it. The 4th came out this year. And I want to play them so bad. They're all like 100-hour long JRPGs. It's RPG all the way fucking down. I'll never get around to it. And it's fine. It's fine. It's fine that I'm not going to play them. But I wish I could, because I hear that they're fantastic, and they're all set on the same continent. The politics are apparently really interesting, etc. And I'm just sad that I don't have the time for it. It is what it is. Anything else here from March? Bleeding Edge came out. I played that at PAX or E3 or something. E3. It was at E3 last year, and that was enjoyable. But I didn't get around to it after it launched. March.
Night and Birth came out again.
It did. It came out the second. It got
I will just say, Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York. What a great title! I haven't played that game. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's bad on several levels. Maybe it's great. But Coteries of New York. Oh my goodness, what that conjures!
It does a lot.
I want to join Coteries.
You should play this game. It's a visual novel.
Why don't you come to my vampire salon?
I mean, this is why Vampire the Masquerade fucking slaps. Is because that is 100%. Because everything that's it's all available to you in the world of Vampire the Masquerade, from intellectual debates at the prince's court to hanging out in a dark club while The Cure plays, and everything in between. That wide range of things. To be clear, I think contemporary tabletop Vampire the Masquerade stuff has been, let's say, troubled. White Wolf variations on the White Wolf properties have been handled by some, let's call them, Nazis in the past decade. And so there's been some problems. I think that I believe the folks in charge of the current release are not bad. I believe the bad folks were pushed out and replaced. I was
going to say, just then, Rob, why don't we just play Vampire the Masquerade together, the tabletop game? Can you just show me what character you would roll for that? I just want to know.
See, I that's
Do you know?
I'm ready to get
what
in.
clan would you be? I think Rob would be a Toreador. Is my read.
Hang on, I gotta look up what the freaking clans are again.
All right, let's see if I can name as many. I can name as many. Okay, wait, I'm gonna turn on my camera again so you can see that I'm not. Here are my hands.
Okay, you're not cheating. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Ventru, which are business leadership ones. Toreador, artsy ones. Shimize or Tsumitse, the face shifting ones. I think that they're a Sabat clan. The Bruja, who are and they're not animal changey, but they're violent and aggressive, and sometimes they can animal change. The Gangrel are the ones that are more animal changey. The Tremere are mages. They're the blood magic people. The I'm missing some Camarilla ones for sure. Fuck. That might be all I can pull from my brain right now. If I could see their clan logos, I could see them for sure. The Assamites are the assassins. They're not in the Sabbat, but they're also not in the Camarilla, I believe. Oh, the Giovanni are mafia vampires.
They just made Italian vampires.
It's bad.
Hey,
and Giovanni
I'm drinking blood over here.
I know, it sucks. It sucks. Except the one thing that's fun about it is that means that I always thought that Giovanni from Pokemon was secretly a vampire. Is anything? How many are left? Can you have a list in front of you? That's probably a bunch left.
I'm looking at a list.
Draconis Combine.
And,
the Draconis Combine, right? Of course.
But at the Tremere.
Said the Tremere. They're blood mages.
Okay, so the Tremere. Banu Hakim, formerly Assamites.
Yeah, Assamites. Oh, they got renamed. Okay.
Yeah. Clan Ministry, Clam Industrial Band Ministry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Sure. Malkavian,
yes.
deeply ableist. What if the vampires were what if the blood had gotten to their minds and they were existed in the kind of a different perspective of reality?
What if your mental health problems got twisted?
Got twisted. What if you got Joker-fied? Nosferatu.
It's not like trying to tap into like hippie subculture and like they're just a vampire clan full of like people who are all like open your third eye and that's how we roll. Like that's not
it can be in that direction, but what it really is like what it really is an excuse for someone at the table to be like, I'm gonna be twisted. I'm gonna play what I think. I'm gonna play Hollywood crazy. It's bad. Mm-hmm. I think there's ways to do it well. Probably. I don't know what the contemporary like write up is on Malkavians. Yeah. Like I haven't read the books. I read books when those books were originally coming out, pre Gehenna, pre like the original run. Or during the original run. So I don't know what the contemporary thing is. Nosferatu. They're Nosferatu. They're like, whoa, what if my vampire curse made me look like a Nosferatu from the movie Nosferatu? Yeah.
Man, it's Nosferatu from the movie Nosferatu. I think you got all of them. You missed Malkavian initially, but you got there.
I feel like there's another Sabbat clan. There has to be another, because the only ones I've said are Tamize and
La Sombra.
I think, are they all, they're like witches. They're like, I want to say they're like lady witches or something.
Something like that, yeah.
That makes sense.
Nicknames: the Night Clan, Abyss Mystics, Keepers,
there you
Magisters,
go.
Abyss Mystics?
Yeah, the Abyss Mystics.
It's a cover band of the Eurythmics.
God. All right. Well,
yeah,
that was
Rob is a Toreador. I'm probably a Toreador.
Are we sure there's no chance I'm Ventrue?
You might be Ventrue. So this is a funny story too. In college, have I told this story to y'all? In college, I played in a tabletop. We had a group of people who wanted to start playing tabletop games. We had someone who wanted to run one for us, but many of the group had never played a tabletop RPG before, and so we played a vampire game. We played a World of Darkness game, but I think it was mostly a vampire game in which we played college students who were like us, basically, right? Mm-hmm. Who some wild shit happens.
This sounds like you get charged very quickly.
Oh, dude. Long term, it got charged in a way that was very upsetting. We can't get into that part of this story. It was like multiple different layers of that game.
We all learned this lesson.
We all learned a lot
of
lessons.
Vampire the Masquerade is the game that this happens with almost exclusively.
Yes. 100%. Like, I got stories. But in this, the thing was that we got turned into vampires, like, by a secret organization, and we didn't know what clan we were. We just kind of unlocked powers bit by bit. And I had positioned myself very Toreador to that group of people, and like I had thought that that's where I was going. But I was also the most experienced Vampire the Masquerade player, tabletop RPG player, and so I naturally had fallen into a very like leadership role and like encouraging people and etc. And then like a big late act twist was me thinking like, I can't wait to meet my Toreador master one day, and like this person's going to help me become a cool vampire lord. And instead it ended up being this like slick business CEO mastermind who was a Ventrue, and the GM was very much psychoanalyzing me and very much being like, no, Austin, what you don't understand is you think you're a Toreador, but really you're a Ventrue. And I hated him for it.
Don't do psychology when you're playing tabletop games.
Well, don't worry. Things only got worse from there. You know? We started LARPing, and at the LARPing stage, you open some doors. Anyway.
Boy.
Is that not how most people play Vampire? That was my only introduction to Vampire.
There is a Vampire. There is a very famous Mind's Eye Theater version of Vampire that is the LARP version. It had very solid rules for LARPing and conflict resolution with very little dice, with no dice. And so that became a very popular way of doing it. But you can also tabletop it
and stuff like that were like,
yes, there's all sorts of little things like that.
Yeah.
This sounds like a system that if you had access to an unused black box theater, you could have a real hell of a time.
We did a lot of stuff in spaces like that around the Hofstra University campus. Exactly. Also, the Wakanda salute is how you obfuscate. You use your obfuscation powers in vampire LARPing, which means obfuscate means you turned invisible. Right. You use vampire invisibility. So you would have in circa 2003 to 2007, you definitely saw a lot of kids on the Hofstra University campus going like, boom, I'm invisible now, tossing up that Wakanda salute before it existed. And I just want a time traveler to go back and be like, what the fuck is going on?
You're all canceled.
You're all canceled. You can't do this. Anyway, we should keep moving. Patrick left and we immediately went off the rails. Immediately. He's going to come back. We're still going to be on a game none of us played. Did anyone play the Persona 5 Royal? Anyone play that? No. Okay.
No. What else happened in March?
I think I had something. Oh, yeah. Was Yes Your Grace March? I have it in my March folder on Steam.
Maybe.
And I think both Rob and Gita played that.
Yeah, I played all of that unexpectedly. Yeah,
wow,
March
you played
6th.
the whole thing. Damn.
Yeah, I played the whole thing. I unexpectedly really, really liked it. It's not going to make it on my list, I think, but I think it's a decent little game, fun little management game. I like these management sims that take very basic management sim concepts and then use those mechanics to tell a story. It's been pretty popular. When I look back at this year, I think I played a couple of those games like that, and I think they're all very interesting, and it's something I want to see more management sims try specifically to use a form to tell a story or make a point, rather than just be obsessed with the form.
Yeah. Rob, I remember you kind of bounced off of that after some time, right?
Yeah, eventually. I think it was just unfolding a little. Well, one, it was unfolding a bit slowly for me. There's a lot of like wandering around this fucking castle and like talking to people, and like eventually you just get tired of walking these circuits. But the other thing was, it just had such a feeling of impending disaster. Like everything I was doing was just somehow making things worse. And I was like, this is a bummer. It's good. It was good. But also I was like, I don't think I want to be this kind of like
Bad dad. Just like a really bad dad.
A bad dad.
I was groping towards, I was like, I don't think I want to be like medieval fantasy Obama in some ways, where you're like trying to chart this middle course and everything keeps going to shit. And you're like, better double down on this middle course. And it's like, dude, read the fucking tea leaves. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess who did witchcraft to try to produce an heir and then their wife died.
That's how it goes sometimes, huh?
That's just fucking how it goes.
Other March thing briefly, Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord came out in early access. I played enough of it to know I want to wait for it to come out of early access. I want it to be done, and then I'm gonna go deep dive on that. Let's do April, and then maybe we'll take a break after April. How's that sound? We'll see how April goes, maybe.
Yeah.
So Patrick isn't back yet, and I need to know his thoughts on Resident Evil 3. I think he's the one of us who played it. Right? So maybe
I can speak
save
for Patrick.
You can just what, Rob?
I can speak for Patrick.
Okay, wow, you have his proxy. He gave you his proxy.
I don't.
Okay.
Austin, did you?
We'll come back to it.
Did I black out, or did you play Gordian Quest? That came out in March. I don't think it's on this list.
It didn't come out in March, did it?
Apparently.
I thought they came out last year. Did that come out in March?
My speaker's glitched. It sounded like Kato said accordion quest.
Oh, do you know what? The reason it's
reason
it's not there in my the reason it's not in my March page is because I've played it since then. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I like Gordian Quest a lot. It's still in early access. I dipped back into it in September because they added a new chapter to the game, and each chapter is its own standalone thing. So you could just like jump ahead and try out a different thing. It is like a Slay the Spire style, like. It's actually it isn't. It is a card game. It is a card game RPG, but you have a party that has equipment, and your equipment gives you some of your cards. And it is not a roguelike in the Slay the Spire sense. You're exploring a map. You are getting into fights. I think that it has such good like click feel, but also just like it is fun to engage. It tastes like junk food in a really good way. The fights are rarely as hard as something like Slay the Spire. They can get tough at certain points, but it is not that style of I'm trying to like balance my resources across whatever. It's so much more the feeling of playing a big RPG where you're like, now I'm upgrading this perk. Now the numbers are going up, and the attack animations look cool. And the fight, you're kind of you're fighting in a a sort of JRPG style. You're on the left side, enemies on the right side, except the left side is a 3x3 grid. And the right side is a 3x3 grid. So there's like ranks and files in which you are aiming attacks. So maybe your mage has like a lightning strike attack that hits a whole row of enemies, or you have a ranger who can do like some sort of explosive arrow attack or whatever. All of the classes have a bunch of really cool different variations. Again, it's still in early access. I think once this game is out of early access, I'm going to disappear into it for a month. It feels like that sort of thing. Totally. And like I said, the second act it came out in late August, and they have continued to build, I think, a really cool game. It's like very like generic, in a way that I actually like, in a way that's like, it's doing generic anime fantasy stuff, like that is the space it's in, which often means it's playing in stereotype. It's often playing in, very familiar tropes. Like, nothing that I think, yeah, go ahead, Kata.
It's like popcorn, like it's like not a lot of substance, but fucking delicious, right? Like,
yes, totally, 100%. It's really delicious. That's a good descriptor. A delicious dish. Patrick, you're back just in time.
Yeah, it's ended up one, I need to buy a new washer. I'd ask for recommendations, but I'll have bought one by the time this podcast comes out.
Great.
Love to have a guy, person come in. I mean, the guy's awesome. He's come and done other stuff for us. He's no bullshit. It's just nice to have someone who's just like, you can trust to give it to you straight. And he just walks in and is like, oh, you're buying a new washer. Just not even going to look at the rest of it.
Wow.
Just go get another one. I was like, oh.
Damn.
All right. And then he was like, hey, you play that new Cyberpunk? And I was like, oh, okay.
Did he see your PS5 or something?
No, we talked about games the last time. I was just bullshitting, and he was like, when he came out and told me our dryer was broke in the spring, when I should have bought these together, and I didn't. And he asked me a couple questions about it, and then I like picked up on the fact that like it sounds like maybe he's like a hardcore PC gamer, and I was like, oh, what are you playing then? I'm like, a PlayStation or Xbox? He's like, nah, man. PC, like I just buy new graphics cards, and I was like, all right, dryer man, like okay. And then we talked about WoW raids.
There is nothing that illustrates the ways in which it feels like the conversations we have about games. I don't just mean us, but like the Twitter sphere is insulated from the rest of the world, and much smaller in reach than sometimes it feels, because when things break bad and someone gets like piled on, the way, for instance, Callie did over at GameSpot this week, for a 7 out of 10, an extremely good review of Cyberpunk that called a lot of its faults into clarity, and also not even the lowest scoring game.
No, like 7 out of 10 is still like maybe worth playing, but like going with like wide eyes.
Oh yeah, here are all of the problems with the way it handles culture and race and theme and politics, and here are the ways in which it's a broken fucking video game. So I think when things like that happen, when she gets piled on, when people get attacked, it feels huge, and it feels like, okay, this is the center of the world. But like your washer repairman be like, you play that Cyberpunk, is the biggest illustration of like, oh no, there are millions and millions and millions of people who've not even heard the criticisms of that fucking game, the actual criticisms of that game, and not just like the Reddit post about whatever the bugs are.
I think this guy might be on Reddit, honestly. He's like, the way he talked about WoW rating, and like I was like, oh, you're in it. Anyway.
God. Okay. Patrick, Resident Evil 3 came out in April.
Yeah, that disappointing. Resident Evil 3, that wasn't a particularly good game when it came out. I think the remake is fine. It doesn't with Resident Evil 2, a game that I know Austin. Gita, did you play RE2? I don't know where you fall always on like horror stuff, so I don't know. Okay.
I love horror movies. I just am too scared. I'm a too scared little baby to play horror games.
Games are, I think, fair. They're different.
I think enjoying horror movies and playing horror games are like fundamentally different. Experience, to the point where I've expressed on this podcast where like playing the new Amnesia game, I was like, I'm remembering I don't exactly like doing this by myself. I enjoy like streaming horror games because then it feels like I'm like playing them with a community. It like takes the edge off. But anyway, so RE2 I like walked a fine line of like what does it mean to revisit a classic, and I think it did a really excellent job of maintaining the spirit of RE2 while also like quality of life and like finding in some ways its own identity of like making that game in 2019. In RE3 they should have taken bigger swings. It's like this game is only remembered because of a big dude, like a Kool-Aid man that like runs around the world. Like that's all that people remember about this. You could change everything else and all you do is piss off like a tiny amount of RE3 fans and everyone else would benefit. And they just didn't. Like it's just kind of Nemesis isn't that scary or interesting. Even if you remove the fact that he's not like systemic, and it's just like scripted sequences, they just fell. The whole game kind of falls flat. It makes me worried that the rumor is that team is doing Resident Evil 4. The only spin on that I can put is that, well, if the reason RE3 didn't work was because like it looks gorgeous, like the aesthetically and mechanically, it's fine. Just creatively, it was a disappointment. So, well, RE4 starts with like a much stronger foundation, and if all you did was tweak around the margins and update the aesthetics, RE4 would still be a really fantastic experience, and so maybe that team is equipped to do that just fine. But I you know, playing RE3 mostly was just like I want to know what the RE2 team is going to do next. And so yeah, that's where I kind of fell on Resident Evil 3.
Yeah,
but I'll keep playing them. You want to remake all those games, like you know what, like like Resident Evil is another franchise that I will just consume methodically and without concern for my own well-being or whether they're good
it's Star
or
Wars
bad.
for you. This is your Star Wars.
Well, but like Star Wars, I care about Star Wars more than I care about I don't care about the RE mythology. Like,
you're not Wesker stan.
Yeah, fair enough.
I just.
What is the Raylo of Resident Evil ships?
Fuck.
Ooh.
I don't know.
Have relations ever been like developed enough in that game to make shipping like that kind of enduring thing?
I just need Resident Evil to. Capcom's clearly going to revisit all of these games. Like, so at some point in the next 10 years, they're going to get to RE5, so the discourse can like eat itself. And Capcom is forced to revisit having made like a tremendously racist video game when the industry wasn't ready to talk about that.
Yeah, when the industry was yelling at black people for saying, "Hey, this seems a little suspect to me."
Hey, pro tip to myself in the past: break up with that guy who bought Resident Evil 5, even though you said it was racist, and then made you play it as the black woman.
Yeah, don't date him.
But also makes RE5 like it's like people really defend that as that it's a tremendous co-op game. They try to hand wave everything else and be like, it's a really fucking good co-op game, which may be true, but I just want I want that discourse again. Like, let's go. Round 2.
It's gonna be here. Yeah, we'll fucking see. The next
That's
big
when
thing.
I'm gonna become the Joker.
Ada Wong
from April.
Ada Wong Leon is Endgame, obviously.
Oh yeah. Ada Wong Leon is Endgame. Fuck off. Final Fantasy VII Remake, a game I was so skeptical of, so deeply. I wasn't all the way to like they shouldn't remake it. Though I was someone who was like, I don't know that it's going to translate. I'm worried about this or that. Really like that game. Really, really like that remake.
Mm-hmm.
Had a great time with it.
Like it even more the more distance I have from
same.
it.
Same.
Like even my qualms about where it goes in the ending, and like I like so. I think it was Heather Alexandra that I wish I had the tweet, but there was somewhere they put it where it was like it's a remake that's well aware that it's a remake and is commenting on the fact that it's a remake, and that's so I don't know that I'll like where the story ends necessarily. Like there's a whole lot of potential for Nomura to not stick the landing on that, but I like so much that it engages my brain in a different way, which is like I'm thinking about Final Fantasy VII as a cultural product while I am playing the remake, and that's just fun. Like that's cool, and I'm glad that's the approach they ended up taking with it, because it's more ambitious than I was expecting, from a storytelling perspective at least.
Yeah, I really, really liked it. I think the gameplay is really sharp. I think the combat design is fantastic. All the characters feel so unique as they play them, or as you play them. I think the areas are all really well rendered, and it's an interesting game structurally because they bulked it up with some side quests that just weren't there in the original. But in almost every case, I felt like I spent as much time as I wanted to in most of the areas. There are a handful of places that I felt and still feel, and I think I said this at the time, I'm sure I said this at the time, did not need to be big dungeons. There are a couple places that are much longer than they need to be, or they've added like weird puzzle mechanics to things that I think were better as evocative background pieces. Big robot hands don't need to like move boxes, move crates around. They can just be big robot hands. Stuff like that. Like it didn't stick with me. But like then I think about the big house boss fight, and that house rules. That fight rules. The stuff with the new characters like the bike guy are all really fun, and I think you look at someone like Jesse who gets so much development in this game that wasn't there originally, and that development also connects to world building in a really sharp way at giving you a different perspective on the way the Shinra Corporation interacts with its employees, stuff like that. It's just really good. So I was making my list. This is like a month or two ago now, and I was like, damn, am I going to end up with a list of like basically just like indie games? And then I was like, wait, no, Final Fantasy VII Remake is the opposite of an indie game. It is a huge like remake of a multi-million-dollar super franchise
that has now been cut into pieces into multiple acts,
and it's definitely going to be on my list somewhere. So we'll see. Let's see, still stuff in April. PSO2 got released on Xbox. I don't think that's worth hitting by itself. That when that whatever the new update to that hits next year, that'll be interesting. Cloudpunk I played and didn't love. I thought that the writing kind of let me down a little bit and the exploration, but it got a first person mode added. Both to the driving and the exploration, and
pretty
that
recently,
sounds really
right?
interesting.
Like in the last couple months.
Yeah, so I want to go back to it and see if that changes my experience of exploring that world, because previously it was all kind of like set camera angles when you were exploring, and there's a lot of running around and stuff. And like for a world that seems like it's built such a fantastic sense of scale, you don't get it when you're out of your car. You only get it while you're flying around, and that was a bummer to me. The next thing on my list here is XCOM Chimera Squad, but if someone else wants to talk about Umihara Kawase Fresh or Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 Road to
Burrito is how I want to read that.
It's not a Road to a Burrito, unfortunately.
That's right. I want a Road to a Burrito today. I don't think I'm going to have one, but I want a Road to Burrito.
Boy, Chimera Squad is a game that released immediately before it would have been received differently.
Like just under the wire discourse.
Yeah.
Wait,
why?
The XCOM Cops expansion.
Because the XCOM Cops game?
Oh, I didn't play it.
So it is entirely what if you were a XCOM SWAT team. Like that is the game, and
it's Ghost in the Shell XCOM world,
And even in the game, you're close enough to being like cops, and it's playing with like enough police procedural tropes that it's embracing a lot of the cop mythology around like the hyper competence of special police units, the fact that like police forces need these like elite militarized strike teams to deal with the kind of threats you find. Now, the thing is, in this work of fiction, they do need a hyper-militarized strike team because it's XCOM world, and they just finished a shooting war with aliens, and the detritus of that is all around the world.
And there are and you're trying to integrate society, and there are anti-alien, terrorists trying to stop that integration, and there are there's all sorts of shit that is fascinating world-building stuff. In the same way that Garrus Vakarian is a cop in the Mass Effect universe, and we engage with fictional police over and over again in our lives, whether through explicitly cop shows or stuff that is adjacent or whatever. I mentioned Ghost in the Shell earlier, and I am not someone who is like, we have to get rid of all policing in all media forever. We talk about Disco Elysium as a cop game, right? But the specifics of the way this stuff was framed very much was like, this is a vice to me. This is like, I am enjoying this in spite of the cop shit. And I'm enjoying the way it's telling an interesting story and has interesting characters. But at all points, I'm aware of the ways in which it's playing into, you know, propaganda type shit. And then weeks later, it would have been impossible for me to push that part of my response down. And that stuff is cyclical in some ways, right? Like there are times in my life when I'm ready to deal with something that crosses the line in certain ways. And there's times when I'm not. And the reason I say, or maybe it's more like the degree to which that shit will bother me changes. Because there's very little shit that's out there in mainstream culture that doesn't cross some line or doesn't have some content that I disagree with. It's more of a matter of like, where is it at that I draw that line in any given day, or where is it that emotionally that I can't fucking stand it anymore is different, if that makes sense, you know? And that definitely changed this year. But I liked that game a lot when it came out in spite of that framing. So I'm curious to see what that team does next, because the mechanical changes in that game are so unique. The like breach and clear stuff is so different. Also, there's like there are bosses in that game, Rob. I don't know if you got that far into it, but there definitely are just like boss encounters. It's weird. So the other tactics game that came out the next like week or whatever was Gears Tactics, which I know Rob and Patrick played more of than me.
Yeah, I beat that shit, even though about halfway through I'd already beaten it halfway through, in that I'd done everything the game had to offer, and yet I played another 15 hours of it. I really liked Gears Tactics. I don't have a particular affinity for the Gears like universe, but I thought they did a really interesting job of adapting the different mechanics of like Gears as a shooter and just making it feel different and weighty than I was expecting. It was a game that like it was good, but also like my experience with it was like, this is better than I was expecting, and so then I was enjoying it more than I was expecting, just because it was such a kind of the surprise factor. Right. But it's just missing any sort of meta. There is no structure to it outside of just going from one mission to the next, and when it runs out of scenarios and to present you with, there's just like nothing else to latch onto. And yet I was playing this game at like the height of like the first wave in Illinois. I was on paternity leave and was like really stressed out. And every time I would sit down, whether in the morning or an evening, and like play Gears Tactics, even though at this point I wasn't doing anything new, like I felt like my brain shift, like I became physically calmer playing it. Partially because it was so familiar. I was like, I know exactly what I've done this fight before. Nothing is going to surprise me here. But I just enjoyed the A and B and C of Gears Tactics so much that it didn't matter. I found the last boss to be super frustrating because at the last second, the whole game is structured around like, have a squad that you really love and stick with them. And then the last fight is like, no, actually, we're going to force you to do things differently and not go in with it was weird. But I really want them to make a sequel. I think there's a tremendous foundation for them to build on.
Yeah. Other stuff, some stuff that's not on this list really quick. Receiver 2 came out in April, and I don't have a lot to say about that game, but it was interesting to return to that style of game and that universe after years. For people who don't remember Receiver as the first game, it's a game that takes gun use extremely seriously in terms of the amount of buttons you have to press and procedures you have to complete to get to firing a bullet.
I didn't know. See, I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I didn't even know this came out this year.
Oh yeah, totally. This is while you were out. Do you remember the first
I feel
Receiver?
like I should have at least I would have noted at one point that like I think Receiver is like a utterly fascinating game.
Yes.
I had no idea that they.
It came out and has 1,300 very positive reviews on Steam.
It
did fine,
shock me,
which is nice. It has a very interesting narrative in terms of its world building, which ends up being a lot about mental health in this one, and confronting some dark places it brings you. This game is partially about confronting suicidal ideation, and the danger of guns, and that's interesting. I didn't play enough of it to come away with a well thought out response to how it handles that stuff, and so I don't want to just like throw out something there. But people should know that going into it, because I did not know that going into it, and the first time that that content showed up, because it's not just dialogue or story stuff; it's interactive, specifically around the guns, in a way that is like very striking and very strange. It's worth knowing that going in, but it's an interesting first person game. People should at least look at it. Another thing that's not on this list but was in my Steam library was Ancient Enemy, which I'm going to shout out really quick so I can actually shout out something that I like a little bit more from the same developers. Great Alien Games make a bunch of card games. They make a bunch of like solitaire style games. And you may remember from years ago when like Lee Alexander was tweeting a lot about Regency Solitaire, for instance. They tend to be like visual novels with solitaire in between the chapters, right? And Ancient Enemy is one in which it's that stuff, but also you get a bunch of abilities, and the solitaire is framed as like it's almost like Puzzle Quest, but solitaire version, which is a weird thing to say. And I think it's fine. I think that the character stuff is like really boring, and the world didn't really stick for me. Shadowhand, which came out in 2017, is like 18th century England. You are a lady of court who also puts on a mask and goes out and hunts bandits. You're like an aristocrat, but who's also like a superhero. It fucking rules. That world is dope. I think the RPG stuff in it is just as good as an Ancient Enemy. And people should play Shadowhand. It's a game I often play on buses, or like when I'm going home for the holidays, because it always runs on my laptop, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just play a couple rounds of Shadow, like get a little further into this. The only other thing I have for me in this month is Streets of Rage 4, a game that I was disappointed in because I'm a Streets of Rage 2 super fan, and that makes me impossibly hard to please. But everyone else I know, except for Jeff Gerstmann, I think responded really well to this game. So I think that I'm just being a stick in the mud like Jeff is. And you know, it is what it is. I was never going to be happy with something that didn't stick the landing. There wasn't just Streets of Rage 2 again, and that's on me. That's not on that game.
I think it's cool that game seemed to land with enough people that it's hard for that genre to be anything other than like a complete tiny niche. And it seemed like, I don't know that game, sold millions necessarily, but it was just neat for a genre that used to dominate the, gaming landscape, and then has now been sort of like ushered into just like a tiny little corner. Like that one seemed to like land with a wider group, and that's cool that that's even possible in 2020. Yeah.
I really liked some of the character designs. I really liked kind of narratively some of the stuff that it did. There's some fun callbacks to the previous games, and I was I had an okay time. A lot of the music didn't land with me. A lot of the level design didn't land with me, and that's like, again, that's a me thing. I know everything we're talking about is an us thing, but like, yeah, it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. But I think it's a well-made game at the very least. Last thing I want to shout out from this month is Sakura Wars, which is an action RPG dating sim that came out that I only put a little bit of time into. Giant robots in 1940s Japan is a weird choice. It's not a weird choice. I believe the anime came after the original Saturn game, I want to say. Sakura Wars is a long-running series that fucking kicks ass. And I wanted to get deeper into this, and then just got distracted because of the job. And I need to, it's on my holiday or January list of games to revisit, because it's such an interesting premise, which ends up being the basic premise of this game is that you are put in charge of a theater that does like variety show, like musical reviews type stuff. And also, when the aliens attack, you and your theater troupe get into
You
the
have to
mechs.
save the community center.
You have to save the community center from the aliens. And also you have to compete in an international mech combat tournament.
Of course.
With like the French team and the British team and the American team and the Chinese team and et cetera. And it's a dating sim and it's fun and the music is incredible. And I'm getting mad at myself for not playing this game more than I talk about it.
I love anything where the setup is, my God, the aliens are attacking. To deal with this, first we need a talent competition.
Yeah.
Like
You gotta know who you're sending out.
You gotta know. Totally. So
we must
yeah.
quickly create an emergency academy where attractive young people will test their skills, but also explore personal growth.
Also, I said aliens. It's demons. It's because
right.
it's there's a great demon war. It's a whole thing. But anyway, it's good. All the characters seem really good, and I wish I put more time into it.
One last game from April. That I think Austin was the only other person who touched this. Boreal Tales, which now has
Boreal
a different
Tales.
name.
Damn.
Boreal Tenebrae,
Wait, what?
Act 1, I Stand Before You, A Form Undone. They changed the name on the itch page. I had trouble finding it actually, but
Oh, I see.
it is Boreal Tales, Boreal Tenebrae now. An adventure game in kind of, PS2, PS1 era 3D graphics with static camera angles. That was really interesting.
I wish I
about
finished this.
Yeah, same. I mean, this is on my list of like shit. I need to go back and really
I need to finish this.
fucking game because it was so fucking cool. This great kind of like exploring the memories and scenes of a small town as it's like one factory is like shutting down and like there's like also like witchcraft involved and like VHS craft, like witchcraft through the VHS tapes.
Craft.
That's
correct.
So fucking good. Like one of the only games this year, one of like the only games I can think of in recent memory that really kind of hit the idea of like magical realism of like, this is just like the things that happen in this town are like the way that these like nobody like blinks an eye at any of the quote unquote weird things, right? This is daily life for them, but it's still so surreal to be an outsider kind of like learning about this world for the first time. And I just really loved what I played of it, and definitely did that thing of like, oh shit, this other thing came out and I have to move on, and I swear I'm gonna come back, and I don't come back until it's like the end of the fucking year. But I really did enjoy my time with this game.
Apparently there was a big update in June that got rid of a lot of the bugs, and that's great to hear.
Excellent.
So
great. Yes.
So yeah, maybe we should both revisit Boreal.
For
Boreal Tenebrae, Act 1, I Stand Before You, A Form Undone. Great name.
So
great
good.
style.
Hell yeah.
All right. I think that's it for April. That's probably it for our first half of this podcast. We should take a break. It is lunchtime here in the podcasting house. We're not in a house. That's a lie.
We're on our separate houses.
We're on our
Remember
separate
when we
houses.
did this in a single room? That was fun. In a way.
Fun.
It was warm.
was warm.
I wish that room was a little bit bigger, but
We didn't have good food.
It's fun to have like people in a space to interact with. Remember that?
It is. I do remember that. I mean, not recently, but you know, yeah. All right, we should take that break. Thank you always to everyone who's joined us. Thank you to Mello, who led us, who made the holiday theme song for us. You can find 2Mello on Twitter at twitter.com/MelloMakes, and find the songs at 2mellomakes.bandcamp.com. Find me on Twitter, Austin_Walker, Waypoint. Also there. Rob, how about you?
At Rob Zachney.
Gita.
At XOXO Gossip Gita.
Patrick.
At Patrick Kopic.
And Kato.
At A_Kato_appears.
All right, we'll be back with more soon. About capitalism, go home. Oh, live moss. I thought you said living moss, like
Oh,
like
oh.
No,
mosses.
no, the no. I'm on the Living Moss Reddit.
Gotcha.
And,
Sorry, I thought
discussion.
your deep Boston accent was coming through.
People are trying to figure out why the potatoes went away, and I don't hear. There's still not great theories. People like someone used a lot of words to theorize that potatoes got more expensive, and they've cut them from the menu, and it's like, great, you didn't use that many words. Like,
how the fuck did potatoes
I think the price
get
of
more
potatoes
expensive?
has gone up with a price contract change, and it's like, you don't fucking know that, man.
I have a theory. I should go to this site.
I can also have a theory, which is that they suspect that a lower carb option will serve them better.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because that's the trend in diets right now.
My thought is that they are doing less business because of COVID and throwing out more potatoes.
Also a good one. But so much of this stuff is like crazy preserved.
True.
That
And potatoes are such a hardy. They're a root vegetable.
Yeah, it's the ultimate. You just throw that in the cellar. They're fine.
Yeah, but those companies are all, they all have that model, right? Where it's like you bring in exactly as much as you need.
Costs to store stuff,
You guys ready to be gamers?
I'm almost on the sandwich. 1 second.
What kind? Ooh, egg and cheese.
No cheese. This is a Dunkin' Donut sandwich. I don't trust their cheese. Their cheese fucks me up.
Fair.
Sausage
their cheese
and egg.
is bad.
Sausage and egg. Yeah. If I go to a local spot, I'll get cheese.
Yeah. The Harley Quinn movie is like 15 minutes of cringe to kind of shit test you, and then a beautiful, loving portrait of what it's like to not have a lot of money in New York. And the egg and cheese part of that video is just exactly, it's the best bodega representation I've ever seen.
Are you talking about Birds of Prey or a different Harley Quinn movie?
Birds of Prey, that Harley Quinn movie. Yeah.
I was wondering if there was like some like crazy animated, like only in New York, baby, like
New York,
Harley Quinn movie.
No.
You got mail, but Harley Quinn and animated.
I'd take that though. And then the person who runs the shop around the corner is Poison Ivy. It's a cartoon shop.
Yeah, runs the plant store.
Poison Ivy would run like a bougie Brooklyn plant store. She sells poisonous plants to hipsters. They should let me write comics. Anyway.
All right. So this is
release part 1.
Release schedule part 1.
Yeah.
All right.
We gotta clap again?
We do gotta clap again. Are we ready to clap?
I am now.
Let's do 18 seconds. All right.